watching the news on Headlines Now. While Christian groups have sought legislation to protect and manage the assets of the church, the move has come in the wake of reports of corruption by clergymen. The recent corruption row, which hit the Archdiocese of Chennai over mismanagement of church property and funds, has led to calls among Christians for a law to protect church assets in India. The Christians have suggested an act similar to those that govern the religious assets of the Hindu, Muslim and the Sikh communities. The Joint Christian Action Council says it is planning to send a resolution to Chief Minister Karunanidhi and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. And while joining me on the discussion on Headlines Now is Mr. Devasahayam, a retired IAS officer and part of the Joint Christian Action Council. Well, thanks very much, sir, for joining us on a discussion tonight. If you can give me a sense of what exactly you are facing now that you are being denied a law as to regulate the church's properties and funds. Since nobody is there to guard that, what exactly are you facing, sir?
You see, India is a democracy. And in a democracy, the hallmarks are transparency, accountability and participatory governance. All these three are lacking as far as Christian church is concerned. And as you are aware, Christianity has two phases, two aspects. One is a spiritual aspect, the other is a temporal aspect. The spiritual aspect is governed by the canon law. Whereas temporal, that means the properties and assets of the church cannot be governed by canon law, but canon law is being superimposed. It is an autocratic kind of setup. What we want is a democratic governance of the Christian churches, where the community is taken into account, the properties are managed in consultation with the communities, and since it is not being done now, there is no legal protection for these properties and assets. So we are seeking a law. There are three minority communities in the country. One, the largest of course is Muslim, second is the Christian, third is a Sikh. Whereas Muslims and Sikhs have got their own laws like the Waqf Board Act as well as the Sikh Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee Act. Christianity does not have to protect their assets and properties, and property wise Christian religion has got far more properties than Muslims and even Sikhs put together.
Right, Mr. Devasahayam, from what you are telling me, I can gather these assets definitely are worth several crores of rupees, and they are not being regulated, like you said, by the law, or they do not have a legal protection. So as of now, who is directly responsible for handling all these property and so much of money?
You see, it is a very tenuous kind of situation. See, the properties fall in different categories. These have been left by the missionaries prior to independence and people who have endowed their properties to the trust, and after that, after independence, it has been acquired all in the name of the community, the money raised by the community. But the priestly class, the clergy, the priests and the bishops, they arrogate to themselves the responsibility and they dispose of the property according to their whims and fancies. And when they are questioned, they say no, canon law gives them the power, which they do not. There are Supreme Court rulings and High Court rulings that as far as properties and temporal goods are concerned, the law of the land, it holds good. But we don't have a law of the land. That is our grievance.
Right, sir. Now, let's go across to Mr. Luis Menezes, who also joins us tonight, who is also part of that convention there. So, if you can tell us what kind of misappropriation as of now is going on, what kind of an unrest is there, because this convention is a first of its kind. So, what exactly triggered for a convention over discussion of transparency for the system of the church? What exactly triggered something like that?
For a long time now, we have had this problem, particularly in the Catholic Church, of mismanagement of church properties and finances, a total lack of transparency in the decision-making process, a complete lack of accountability, abuse of power by church authorities and so on, which has resulted in the loss of properties, misuse of properties, sale of properties, violating the law, putting businessmen in possession of properties, violating the law and so on. And actually all this these properties, the income from the properties and from our trusts is really meant for religious and charitable purposes. And so we have been facing this problem. We have tried to sort out this problem internally. We have had no good results. And so now we have had this big convention because we find that this is not the problem of the Catholic Church only. Most other churches are facing these problems. The CSI, the Methodists and so on, even the churches in Kerala. And so all of us have got together and we are now suggesting that we need a law. And since there is a constitutional provision for this, we feel that we are even in one way discriminated against. We need a law to protect our properties, to regulate the use of our properties for the management of our properties.
If I may interrupt you, like you said that you do need a law to protect yourself and the churches from all these. Now, what steps exactly are you planning to take? Now, this convention, I believe, has everybody from South India, from Kerala to Karnataka to Andhra Pradesh. So, what are you as a community planning to do so that there is a law to protect these assets like you wanted?
Now that we had this very successful convention, we have this joint action committee which has been authorized by this convention to go ahead and prepare the ground for legislation. And so what we intend doing is we want to have a good look at the existing laws for Waqf and also for the Gurdwaras, as well as certain drafts that have been prepared for Kerala and for Andhra Pradesh, which have reached a very advanced stage. And we want to finalize a draft, and while doing so we will also approach either the state governments concerned or the center, asking them to pass a resolution that they will introduce legislation under the constitutional provision for properties belonging to the churches.
Right, Mr. Luis Menezes and Mr. Devasahayam, you've come in straight away from your convention to our studios and gave us all those details. Then what you're planning to do. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining us on a discussion on Headlines Now. And moving on to some news from the national quarter, as well as Bihar votes in the 6th and the final phase of the assembly elections, the Naxals have struck once again. A can bomb planted below a culvert exploded while being defused. One constable of a bomb disposal squad and one home guard have been killed. 7 people, including 2 media persons, have been injured in this incident. 8 out of the 26 constituencies that went to polls today are Maoist affected. Well, even as the BJP core committee takes time in Delhi to decide its final stance on tated Chief Minister Yediyurappa, the opposition in Karnataka is stepping up its demand for his resignation. Janata Dal State President and former Chief Minister H.D. Kumaraswamy levelled fresh charges against Yediyurappa's family, saying they had received money firms in lieu of granting mining leases to private companies in the state. Meanwhile, Yediyurappa has said in Hubli that he will not resign at any cost. Well, another tiger carcass has been found in the banks of the Brahmaputra in the Kaziranga's Agartoli range. Since February, 5 tigers have died in this very park, and 3 of them just last week. Authorities have consistently maintained that these are either due to natural causes or infighting, but the Forest Department has not revealed the exact nature of death in any of these cases. In the last 2 deaths, they even kept the media out of bounds. Well, at the Asian Games, it's a day of mixed reactions as India loses one sporting sensation, whereas the Hyderabad Hurricane cruises to the next level.